Hello, everybody. My name is Alan, and it's that time yet again. Let's talk metal. All right, tonight, not going to play any music, not going to do a deep dive on records or bands. What I wanted to do instead was talk about some artwork. And I've done a video on crazy album covers before, but tonight I wanted to focus on some that I think are kind of cool, but in a very specific niche. And this is going to be some of the monochrome picture sleeves, particularly from the new wave of British heavy metal. As heavy metal fans, cover art tends to be very important to a lot of us, that we are really drawn to the way albums appear, that the cover art can be used to really tell a story or, evoke a certain, visceral reaction to make us think this is, a cool fantasy scene or a really gruesome, gory horror, scene. And the end result is, always the same. It's meant to really help draw you in to the record and get you interested in it, and of course, possibly buy it. But, a lot of times when you're working with smaller bands, they don't have a big art budget and they have to work on, with very little in terms of artwork. This is especially true pre-internet, when everybody can't just, sit down with Adobe Photoshop and, splice things together that look pretty cool. You go back, into the 80s, and it was all, what can you do with a photocopier, a pair of scissors, and a glue stick? And take away the photocopier, and you're basically describing every elementary school kid's art project. So, yeah, resources can be kind of limited. But a lot of them, I always felt, were very clever in coming up with either really good designs, some that still showed some great artwork, or some of them had simple designs that still did a great job of kind of conveying a certain concept to you. And we'll look at some examples of this. A lot of these, of course, are famously done monochrome, just black and white, maybe some shades of gray or whatever. But again, these were bands that were operating on very limited budget, small-time acts. They had adopted that do-it-yourself attitude from the punk scene that, of course, had been very successful. And now they were translating that over into, rock and metal. And of course, a lot of these bands were hoping to maybe one day make it big, get picked up by a label, but they weren't just going to sit around and wait for, CBS or somebody to come pick them up. They were going to go ahead and put out product themselves and do it the best they could. So yeah, basically, I'm just going to show off a lot of cool little picture sleeves from different singles, and, maybe comment on them. Shooting a little bit from the hip on this video. I haven't, put a lot of thought into this. I just grabbed a couple of boxes of singles, pulled out ones that fit the bill, and figured we'd show them off for a little bit. Now, I do want to say up front, with a lot of these items, some of these are, boots. Some of these, the record may be original, but the picture sleeve is a photocopy. So yeah, some of these can be pretty rare items, but not everything I'm showing you is, a high dollar expensive rarity, and a lot of them are not original copies. So just want to make that very clear up front. Good example is the first one I want to show, and this is the only one I want to show that's not new wave of British heavy metal. This is actually from an American band called Illusion. They were from, I believe, the Lubbock, Texas area. They made one single back in the 80s, kind of a hard rock meets, a little bit of a metal sound to the band. And what do you do with a name like Illusion when you're a really small act in the middle of, the desert, trying to come up with, a simple picture sleeve for a single? Well, they came up with this. And I really like this design, that they kind of take the name of the band Illusion and found a way to sort of make an optical illusion with it on the picture sleeve itself to sort of reinforce the name of the band. No, it's not going to win a prize at, some art show. It's never going to hang in the Louvre or anything like that. But it's just clever that, they were able to do something relatively simple, but still was very effective at, tying it into the name of the band. It's a great little single, by the way. One side has a male vocalist, the other has a female vocalist. Both tracks are pretty good, but I really like the song with the female vocalist on it. And again, this is a good example of one. It's a very rare single. This is not an original picture sleeve. I wish it was. I've never been able to track down a copy with an original sleeve. This is just a photocopy that Buddy was kind enough to make for me, so I'd have something in here besides just the record. But this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. A lot of folks look at it and like, oh, that's very plain. There's nothing to that, whatever. But no, if you think about it, it's like, that's actually a clever way to get the concept of an illusion across when you don't have $200,000 or, a renowned artist in your back pocket. So that's the one non-new wave of British heavy metal entry here. And I've commented on this before in other videos, but yeah, American bands often didn't do a picture sleeve at all with their singles. When you're dealing with these kind of small, privately pressed affairs from the 80s, a lot of them are just a plain single that, just looks something like this. And it doesn't make those harder to collect because you really got to stop and read all the info to try to figure out, is this a metal single? Is this a heavy single? Is this just some random pop band? You don't have the picture sleeves to kind of help cue you in. But a lot of new wave of British heavy metal bands did use the picture sleeve concept. And again, I've pulled these from a couple of different boxes. They're probably roughly alphabetical, but the alphabet may reset halfway through the stack when I switch to a different box. So let's just look at some others and see what kind of cool things bands came up with. Here's one I like a lot. A band called Baseline, which kind of a weird one to come up with a concept for. One of their song titles is Suspended Animation. And so, yeah, they just kind of have this, weird, I don't know, crystal, cryotube, trapeze gone horribly, horribly wrong. I'm not sure what it is, but, it still kind of gets the concept apart with the person being sort of suspended upside down in a weird position. It's, conveys the concept of suspended animation. So, yeah, it kind of works pretty well. Simple design, wouldn't have taken a lot to, put this together. But it works really nicely to reinforce the song title. And it's a cool single and a cool song. This is another one where if anybody has a spare copy of the real picture sleeve sitting around, I could use that. This is just, a photocopy, but hey, it's a cool one. Let's see. Next on the stack, we've got a band called Badge. Kind of a strange name for a new wave of British heavy metal act. What do you do when your name is Badge and you're trying to come up with a concept for a 7-inch picture sleeve? Well, you draw a little dragon that's holding kind of a big badge in front of it with your name on it. So, yeah, again, simple drawing, looks pretty good though, and it's eye-catching enough to get people's attention. People who are, will be interested in metal stuff, they want to notice, ooh, dragon. I want to stop and look at it long enough to figure out that, okay, maybe that's a band I ought to stop and check out. Maybe I should pick this up. Like the Badge single, nice one. Now, the concept doesn't always work. There are times that it kind of goes horribly wrong. I showed this one off, I believe, in a previous video with sort of a goofy, crazy picture sleeves. This was the Challenger single, where you've got, Little Druid, Giant Lightning Bolt, song title of So Sure of Yourself. Okay, yeah, so not every band quite found the, clever artistic interpretation of their band or music, but it's just a funny looking single. Figured I'd show it off again. Why not? This one is very badass looking and is one of my favorite bands I've mentioned on many videos. Crucifixion. This is the single they did for Neat Records. Pretty simple idea. Reaper, playing cards. Got the 13 there. Nothing crazy about it. Just nice little black and white inked sleeve with a cool picture on it. And anybody who's interested in heavy metal, if they see this in the box, they're going to stop and take a look at it. It's going to get the job done very nicely. Next up, we've got the single by Crier. And again, Crier doesn't necessarily sound like a very heavy name for a band, but when you do it up this way, with this, kind of strange font and, this kind of very odd cutout jack-o'-lantern looking thing with the, hollow eyes and the big tears, it's actually kind of cool. It's almost a little imposing looking. Really like the way this one turned out. It's called The Single because it's the single by the band. They put a lot more work into the picture sleeve than they did the title. I won't have to just flat out say it. But it's a cool single. And this is a band. They changed names later on, put out an album under a different moniker. But again, just a good example of, again, very effective. It's a simple design, but yeah, it's crying. It gets the concept across really nicely. This one gets a concept across. I'm not sure what it was, but kind of a crazy picture sleeve. It'll definitely catch your eye in the record racks. This is Dragster's Ambition, single on the Heavy Metal Records label. Yeah, I've commented on this one before too. I never did quite understand why they had, the crazy lettering down the side, or why they had to put "Made in England" up in the corner, because it's an English record label and a single by an English band that wasn't necessarily getting, worldwide distribution or anything. But anyway, it's cool looking picture, if a little strange. It's Dragster. Great song too. Ambition's a killer track. Next up, High Treason. This is a sort of an underground fan favorite among new wave of British heavy metal collectors. And yeah, it's a pretty good one. Both songs have a pretty good speedy approach, roll along pretty well. And again, very simple concept. Treason, noose, pretty simple connection there. So nothing fancy, no highfalutin art degree needed to put this together. But yeah, it works. And it's, again, menacing looking enough to get somebody to stop and look at it if they're just flipping through a box of records or a rack of records, looking for something to pick up. Others, man, there's a pretty good stack of these, but I'm just going to go through them relatively fast. You've got the Jaguar. So, yeah, you put a Jaguar on it, but you make it look, sort of, real mean, real kind of feral. You splice your logo into it, and you've got yourself a really cool looking little picture sleeve. This is another one on Neat Records. This has the killer track Axe Crazy on it. Just absolute scorcher. If you've never heard it, check it out. It's one of the most driving new wave of British heavy metal tracks ever. Really shows where a lot of thrash bands kind of got the message on. All right, we're going to take that and we're going to do that from a new wave of British heavy metal band. All right, next one is not black and white. It's blue and white. It's the Mindless Prey single. And I always loved this one. One of my favorite new wave of British heavy metal singles ever. Arguably my favorite, depending which day of the week you ask me on. I always thought, the idea of, doing the blue ink made it stand out from the crowd a little bit extra. And hey, you got this, cool big bird of prey with the guitar. I like, the guitar strings are, snapped and come undone because you got big, hawk falcon talons ripping it apart. I don't know why I'm doing this with my hand. Let's stop doing that. But yeah, just another really cool, simple design, nicely put together. And again, he's like, hey, there's a big bird attacking a guitar. You'll stop and look at that. Next up, one of the earlier new wave of British heavy metal releases that made an impact and got some attention was the Mithra release. This one got released in both 7-inch and 12-inch forms. This is the 7-inch. We just grabbed it because I was mostly pulling 7 inches, so kept doing that. But again, just kind of simple, big, bird stylized look to it, black and white design. But again, that'll catch people's interest. Is it a griffin? I guess looks cool enough to make people stop and want to check it out a little bit. Death and Destiny, really good. This is one of those that new wave of British heavy metal fans have known about for so long that I feel like it doesn't get enough attention anymore, that everybody just feels like, oh yeah, I've known about that thing for 30 years. Nobody cares about that anymore. But solid material on here for sure. It's one that should not get overlooked just because it's been a known quantity for a long, long time. This one's a little more abstract, but I always liked the single a lot. The OS stands for Omen Searcher, which I always thought was a really cool band name. And they have this, kind of very distinctive picture sleeve. A little more abstract, but cool design. I can dig it. And I can definitely dig the single. Both songs on it are pretty solid. Next up, we have a band called Prowler. And, if a bird attacking a guitar from Mindless Prey looks good, then having a cat attack a guitar, well, might not look quite as good, but it's a thing because, I'm not sure if the cat loves metal and is trying to play the guitar, or if he is angry that the guitar is too loud. It's disturbing my cat nap. Make it stop. I have no idea. But also not sure what it has to do with Prowler now that I stop and think about it. So maybe this one doesn't work so well, but it is, again, a picture sleeve that will make you stop, check it out, and think about it some. It's not a bad single either. This band did another single, which I like more, but we'll get to that in a minute. It's in the stack here somewhere. All right. You also have, if your band is named Salem, that of course is going to evoke, thoughts of, witchcraft and black magic and stuff like that. So you get, a really wild looking, demon-y thing and use that as the mascot on your picture sleeve. You can still do it in black and white just fine. You don't have to have, advanced degrees and thousands of hours in Photoshop to come up with, pretty creepy looking demon-y thing if your band name is Salem. This next one, another one that's pretty simple, but I always liked. A band called Scarab. They made this really good single with Poltergeist and what's the flip side? Hell on Wheels. And it's got a great big scarab on the cover. And hey, if it works on the cover, it'll even work on the record label itself, although they made it pink for some reason. Don't know what's with that. But very straightforward, simple design. Big heavy metal looking bug. I can dig it. All right. This other one I've shown off in a video not too far back, I think, as the Trespass single for One of These Days. And this, again, is just really the epitome of using a simple concept to get across a cool idea. One of these days, and the date circled on the calendar is the 32nd of the month, which means it's a day that never really comes, but it's something you want to get around to one of these days. Very clever thing. And all you had to do is put some numbers, print the words, and circle the number 32. Really, really easy to do sleeve design, but very clever in getting the point across. All right. Let's switch to another box. So I think we're back to the letter A here. Continuing on, we've got single. This one's loved by a lot of new wave of British heavy metal fans. It's the second single by the band Ark, and they had this very simple idea of, hey, the name is Ark, so we're going to have a big arc go right over the logo. Okay, it's simple, but it works. And they had this War of the Ring, which obviously Lord of the Rings inspired. And you see, this one's a little busier than most of these monochrome sleeves from the new wave of British heavy metal. But again, nothing too fancy here. I thought it was very clever that they used some of the Elvish script in the background, reinforcing the tie to Tolkien. Because even in the early 1980s, heavy metal fans and Tolkien fans kind of went together quite nicely. Yeah, they're not going to win any awards for the artwork on the big spider down here in the middle, but there's enough going on the picture sleeve that you're not focused on just the spider. You're looking at the lettering, the big arc, the band logo. The splash of color here, helps with it a little bit too. So kind of cool job. Good job, Ark. It's a cool song too. All right, now some bands did use the approach of, getting someone to sketch the band members and put them on the picture sleeve. And some of these, turned out pretty well, for just, sort of, simple, I don't know if they're charcoal drawings or pencil sketches or whatnot. But, a good example, one of these is Bashful Alley. Now, this one came on several different colors for the picture sleeve. This is the white version, which just was in the box I happened to open up and pull these out of. But again, probably, easier and, more effective in some ways than getting a picture of yourself just plastered on the picture sleeve. Lots of bands did that. Those are often not very interesting looking. If it's just, 3 punters standing around looking, like here I am standing in front of a car and or building and or, railing of some type. But you get somebody with a little artistic talent, you have them sketch out your members, you use that, and it looks really cool. I can dig it. Next up, I've shown it before. You knew there's no way I wasn't going to show this, at least one more time. Gotta love that big daisy. Crazy little picture sleeve image, and I've told the story before, but hey, if you haven't seen that video, A friend of mine over in the UK explained this to me, that in British society, there's this kind of just weird little kitschy idea that when you go on vacation to the beach, you buy these postcards that show sort of portly women in old-fashioned bathing suits, and you send them to all your friends as sort of, this sort of in-joke of, look what a great time I'm having, wish you were here, or whatnot, ha ha ha. And so the guys in Big Days, they apparently played off of that concept for, their picture sleeve release. I love that picture sleeve so much. It's just a killer. Gotta love it. Now you can go from that to something much more abstract. One of the better known new wave of British heavy metal bands and singles, the Blitzkrieg single, made famous, of course, being covered by Metallica. Killer song, really at the heavy end of the new wave of British heavy metal spectrum. But when you stop and really look at this picture sleeve, there's some weird stuff going on here. Again, not going to win an art project, but it's going to make you stop and look and kind of think about it. It's big metal bird, dragon, butterfly thing up there, and you got faces in the rock, and I don't know what's happening to that thing. But yeah, kind of crazy stuff. Pretty busy for picture sleeve. Okay, up next is one of my favorites. I think this one really shows just how impressive some of the art could be on these little monochrome picture sleeves. This is the one and only single by a band called Weevil, which, odd name for a heavy metal band, but there you go. And they have this little shrunken head artwork on the picture sleeve. It's really eye-catching, stands out, really nicely done. Anybody who sees this is going to want to know what it sounds like. This is one that even my dad has always been fascinated with, this picture sleeve. My dad's a record collector, but he has no interest in hard rock or heavy metal stuff at all. But, he's always remembered this one. Anytime we're talk or flipping through records together, he'll almost always ask, like, you still got that single by Weevil? I'm just like, yeah. He's just like, that's such a cool picture sleeve. I love that sleeve. I'm just like, hey, it's a cool one. Pretty cool little single too. Definitely like this one. Probably will feature it some night on a video where I've got more time to talk about them. But yeah, really neat picture sleeve. That one is going to turn heads. Shrunken heads. Another one that I really love is the Charger single. Now again, there's confusion about when this one came out, so a lot of folks have it as late as 87, so maybe it's not fair to call it new wave of British heavy metal. Doesn't matter for my purposes here. I got this cool, badass, horse, dragon, chimera thing going on. It's a perfect example of a simple black and white picture sleeve that's going to make you stop and look at it and think, that's probably pretty cool. I want to hear what that sounds like. And you really do want to hear what this sounds like. Ask me on a day of the week when I'm not choosing Mindless Prey, and I'll probably choose the Charger single as my favorite new wave of British heavy metal 7-inch. Amazing two-tracker here with a great, great picture sleeve to boot. Next up, getting back a little bit more to the esoteric side of things, we've got a single by a band called China Doll. An odd picture, but they've got a song here called Oysters and Wine. So this one kind of ties into that a little bit. And just kind of a neat concept with the wine spilling out, kind of looking like ink, helping to ink in part of the picture sleeve itself. I thought it was a really cool image, and it's also a pretty cool single. I like this one quite a bit. One of the iconic picture sleeves from the new wave of British heavy metal is the 7-inch 4-track EP from Hollow Ground. This one is really well known. It's not quite as eye-catching as some of the others, but it, still having some kind of warlord mercenary with a big machine gun. This is definitely going to get heavy metal fans to stop and check out what they're doing. This one was released on the Guardian label. This is the same band that was featured on the Rock Snacks compilation album. So really cool one. This one was a real pain in the ass to track down. I had so many near misses getting this record over the years. But we'll save those stories for another night, maybe when we're just telling, heavy metal fish stories, the one that kept getting away, because damn, did this thing get away from me a few times. But we finally do have a copy of it, and it's a pretty cool one. Okay, this next one, definitely not as well known as Hologram, but I adore this picture sleeve. And adore is a funny word to use in a heavy metal video. Before you start leaving a comment, calling me out on that, wait a second, and you'll understand why I picked the word adore. Because this little guy is just cute. This is adorable. Single by Mars. And for their mascot, they've got this little Martian guy playing the guitar. And you just know that guy is shredding that thing. He's burning it up Dragon Force style. What a cool little concept too. Hey, our band is called Mars, and we got a little Martian rocking out on the guitar. I love this picture sleeve. Those of you that have watched my t-shirt collection video from a while back will recognize this, because I actually have a t-shirt that someone made years ago of the Mars artwork on a shirt. Not a well-known single. It's pretty good. I can dig it, but I'm not going to claim it's like, one of the best ones ever made or anything like that. But I will love it till the day I die, just for that little Martian dude giving it all he's got, going totally Eddie Van Halen on that guitar. You know Yngwie took lessons from this dude. All right, still got a few more here to go. We're getting towards the bottom of the stack. We're in the M's. Here's a good example of one that didn't work. So again, I'm not saying that every one of these sleeves works out well. This is from a band called Midas. Good single. Like this one quite a bit. But Midas touch. He's trying to touch the microphone. Spiky ring. Midas, a crown. It's not really a crown. It's more of a ring. It's kind of spiky. I have no idea what's going on here. The song titles, were Can't Stop Loving You Now. And, oh darn, what is the flip side of this one? That's not going to help, I can tell you that. Power in the Sky. Maybe he was reaching for the sky, but no, why would the microphone be up in the sky? I don't know what was going on with this picture sleeve, but it's a swing and a miss for sure. But cool single, but not one of the better picture sleeves. Now, this is one of the better picture sleeves. I showed you earlier, Prowler had, Bad Kitty attacking their guitar. On an earlier single, they went more the route of having a friend draw pictures of the band members, kind of like the Bashful Alley single. And they came up with this one. And this is such a cool drawing from the band Prowler. They're the guys. And, they got this, cool, big, sort of, don't know if it's supposed to be werewolf or, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of monster sort of looming over them in the background. Like the little swirls here, just the misty stuff almost makes them look like, they're, decapitated. Maybe this thing's already, caught them and ate them or something. But a really nicely done illustration on this Prowler single. This one is a bit harder to find than the other one I showed, but it's also the better of the two. It has Forgotten Angel on it. It is a pretty cool song, and Don't Let Go is also pretty solid. But yeah, this is just one of the most striking picture sleeves. I don't know who did this for them, but they did a really, really nice job on it. Right. Another example of a band getting themselves drawn to put on the sleeve and having a nice job done of it is the Ricochet single. This is a really good single. The track Midas Light is on here. It's one of the genre's highlights. Just an amazing track. And they even had some fun with the artwork on their little homemade record label, Heavy Rock Records. And some poor bugger there has gotten himself completely smashed. See what I did there? Yeah, totally smashed. His steel was not true enough to be banging out to this stuff. But cool single, and again, just nice illustration of the band drawn there. Why spend tons and tons of money if you can get something that nice to go on the picture sleeve? Now, some people have commented on this one that they don't like it, but again, I think it's just a simple design and it works okay. You're talking small bands, small budgets, small labels. And this one's really become one of the iconic images from new wave of British heavy metal records. It's the Satan Kiss of Death single, their first vinyl output. This is, pre Court in the Act, pre Brian Ross, all that stuff. Yeah, nothing fancy here, but they got the logo, the T makes the big cross, add a little splash of color where it looks like there's fire and stuff behind it, and it makes a good little visual impact without having to be really busy or fancy or anything like that. It's also one of the best new wave of British heavy metal singles. I really like this early Satan material they recorded for the Guardian label. Personally, I like it a lot more than the later stuff they did on Neat Records, but I think I'm in the minority on that one. Okay, next one, extremely simple, but it gets the point across. It's a band called Target UK, and so Target, with a Target and UK. And yes, they probably put this together in like 3 minutes, but you know what? It reinforces the name of the band. It gets the point across. A couple interesting things about this one. The UK on here, this is some conjecture on my part, but this band was definitely trying to sound a little more American with their sound. And of course, in the early 80s, there was a thing where lots of British bands ended up having UK tagged onto the end of their name, especially if it was a relatively common name, when they would get marketed overseas. So I always wondered if maybe this, kind of got tagged on here by the band because they were going for that, little more American sound. One of the songs is even called, is it FBI, Running from the FBI. If you're, living in London or something, why would you be worried about the FBI investigating you? I mean, maybe if you're like international terrorist or something, but you're a couple of guys making a record. I don't think the song was, going into, the 9/11 dystopia or anything weird like that. So just the fact that they're referencing FBI shows that, yeah, they kind of had, America on their mind. Weird thing about this single, it's one of the few examples I know of in new wave of British heavy metal where some copies have a very different picture sleeve. How different is it? This different. And yeah, you got, sort of, the famous, horror movie image here on it instead. Never really heard a good explanation of why they did two picture sleeves, especially ones that are so different from one another. The record's the same pressing, as far as I can tell. It wasn't a huge smash success. It's a little hard to imagine that they needed tons and tons of extra copies. But yeah, it exists with two picture sleeves. This is one of those things. Only reason I know about it is I stumbled upon it. I had known about the other version for a long time, liked the single, picked it up, but then still, looking through different auctions and record listings. At some point, I saw this and just like, is that a different single by the band? Read up on it, talked to the seller, and it's just like, that's the same bloody single, but a completely different picture sleeve. Why do I have both picture sleeves? You don't have to ask that question. You already know the answer. I'm a sick little monkey. I need help. How many of these singles have I shown you tonight? I've lost count, but we've been at it for over half an hour and I still haven't quite got to the bottom of the stack. So yeah, got to have both versions of it. Next one. Pretty cool. Maybe not the best drawn, but I really like the detail they put into this one. This is one of the real early new wave of British heavy metal releases. It is the Immortal Triarchy and Save the Khan. And just love the artwork here. Warrior on the horse and just, looks like, straight out of battle, blood, gore, mud, I don't know, everything, water, everything, the shit's going on here when you see that picture. It's a really cool single as well. This one's got Save the Khan, and the flip side is Juliet's Tomb. This one had a couple of pressings. This is the first pressing of it with the kind of orangey label to it. The later pressing, if I remember right, didn't come with a picture sleeve. So, or you're not likely to find a copy with a picture sleeve on it. But yeah, I always thought this image was very, very striking. Like it a lot, like the single quite a bit on it. All right, we're getting down here to the end of the alphabet. Another example, sort of a simple inked design, but really evocative and effective, is the Virtue single, We Stand to Fight. This has become a real fan favorite over the years. I remember yeah, 20, 25 years ago, nobody had heard of this single. That's about the time I picked it up, and I picked it up because that's a cool looking picture sleeve, and it's a killer single, especially it's got High Treason back with We Stand to Fight. And We Stand to Fight is just a burner. It's one of the best of the genre. And yeah, just this cool little shadow dude. And I always like the fact that he's wielding a whip. It's not a big sword or battle axe or something, but he's going to mess you up with that whip. No doubt about it. You got the little rider on the pyramid there in the background. The fact, too, that it showed up on yellow instead of white paper just kind of made it stand out a little bit. Really, really great picture sleeve here. And last, but certainly not least for the evening, one more example of getting your band drawn a little simpler. This is not Prowler level of artistic expertise, but it worked pretty good and definitely helped the band, start their legacy. The Witchfinder General single with, the guys hanging out there on the picture. But, just the little touches of the flames in the background, the cross, burning the sinners, the song title on the front of it. You flip through the record binge, you're going to see this. It's going to take your brain, just a couple of seconds to put together. It's like, yeah, there's something kind of spooky and heavy and evil going on here. That's probably something I need to buy and take home with me. Maybe not let mom and dad see that one. Okay, that is the bottom of the stack. So let's talk metal and monochrome picture sleeves in the comments down below. What are some of the other really cool black and white picture sleeves that you like that I didn't show off? Again, I just pulled a couple of boxes of records. Maybe they're behind me and they just didn't make it into the video because they were in the wrong box. Maybe they're ones I've just never picked up. Maybe they're ones I don't even know about. There's a ton of these that I've never gotten to see in my life. So if there's some other cool ones you think deserve a shout out, let me know in the comments down below and I'll definitely go check them out sometime. But with that, it is time to call this thing to an end. So without further ado, everybody take care, stay safe, and as always, keep banging your head.